July 20th, 1944, 12:42 p.m. The conference room at Wolf's Lair explodes. A leather briefcase detonates under a massive oak table, throwing Adolf Hitler against the wall. His ears bleed, his uniform shreds, 4 men die instantly. Windows shatter across the compound. Colonel Claus von Stauffenberg is already racing toward Berlin in a Heinkel He 111, certain he's just killed the Führer. Within 90 minutes, radio silence breaks. Hitler's voice crackles across German airwaves, unmistakable, alive, furious. The coup crumbles. Stauffenberg faces a firing squad before midnight. Here's what nobody tells you. Moments before the blast, someone moved that briefcase 6 feet to the table's far side. 6 feet. No, Hitler would later display his singed uniform as proof of divine intervention, calling his survival, Providence preserving me for my great mission. What moved that briefcase didn't just save Hitler's life, it changed the course of World War II. And the story of how it happened is more impossible than you think. Rewind to 1943, North Africa. Lieutenant Colonel Claus von Stauffenberg is driving through the Tunisian desert when Allied fighters strafe his column. He loses his left eye, his right hand, and 2 fingers from his left hand. The injuries should end his career. Instead, they ignite something else. During recovery in a Munich hospital, Stauffenberg begins hearing things, whispered reports from the Eastern Front, stories the official communiques don't mention. Mass executions. Entire villages burned. Wehrmacht officers complicit in atrocities that turn his stomach. He'd been a loyal officer, a believer in duty and honor. Now, lying in that hospital bed with bandages over half his face, he starts seeing the war differently. By the time he's released, he's no longer the same man. He returns to Berlin in early 1944, promoted despite his injuries to Chief of Staff of the Reserve Army. It's a significant position, administrative, strategic, with regular access to high-level briefings. More importantly, it puts him in rooms with Adolf Hitler. Friends from before the war notice the change. Stauffenberg carries himself differently now. There's a leather briefcase he takes everywhere, unremarkable brown leather with a brass clasp. Standard issue. Nobody thinks twice about it. Spring 1944. Berlin. Stauffenberg is introduced to the resistance, a network of generals, former politicians, and civilians who've been planning Hitler's removal for years. The core group includes General Ludwig Beck, former chief of the German General Staff, and Karl Goerdinger, former mayor of Leipzig. There are others. Officers disgusted by what they've witnessed, civilians horrified by the direction of the regime. They meet in apartments, in offices after hours, always careful, always watching for Gestapo informants. The plan they've developed is called Operation Valkyrie, originally designed as a contingency for internal unrest, now repurposed as a coup mechanism. The idea: kill Hitler, blame the SS, mobilize the reserve army under the pretense of maintaining order, and seize control of Berlin. It requires precision, timing, and someone with direct access to Hitler. Stauffenberg is that someone. He attends briefings at the Wolf's Lair, Hitler's eastern command post, and at Berghof, the Bavarian retreat. He's photographed standing near Hitler multiple times. The Gestapo monitors everyone, yet somehow, across dozens of meetings involving over 200 conspirators, the network stays hidden. Stauffenberg's briefcase becomes central to the plan. It will carry the bomb. June 1944. The technical work begins. Through resistance contacts, British plastic explosive is acquired, compact, stable, devastating. Stauffenberg practices in private, teaching himself to arm a bomb with one hand. It's not easy. He uses pliers to crimp the pencil detonator, works the fuse with his remaining fingers, snaps the briefcase clasp shut. He times himself obsessively. The fuse gives him 10 minutes from activation to detonation. 10 minutes to arm it, place it, and escape. He practices 47 times until the motion becomes automatic. His wife, Nina, notices the tension but says nothing. She knows her husband well enough to recognize when he's carrying weight he can't share. The security at Wolf's Lair is formidable. Checkpoints, armed guards, restricted zones. But there are no metal detectors, no bag searches for high-ranking officers. A briefcase is just a briefcase. The first attempt is scheduled for July 11th. Stauffenberg flies to the compound, the bomb armed and ready. At the last moment, the meeting is canceled. Hitler isn't there. Stauffenberg returns to Berlin, the mission aborted. 4 days later, on July the 15th, he tries again. July the 15th, 1944. Stauffenberg is at Berghof for another briefing. The bomb is in his briefcase. He's ready. But this time, he hesitates. The plan calls for killing not just Hitler, but Heinrich Himmler and Hermann Göring, the three pillars of Nazi power. Only Hitler is present. Stauffenberg argues with fellow conspirators by coded phone call. Without all three, the coup might fail. The others overrule him. Kill Hitler. The rest will follow. But Stauffenberg doesn't pull the trigger. He aborts. Later, he'll be criticized for this decision, accused of overthinking, of losing nerve. The truth is more complicated. He believes in precision, in eliminating all variables. One target alive could rally loyalists, could turn the coup into civil war. He returns to Berlin again, the briefcase unopened, the bomb still dormant. The conspiracy is fraying. Some members want to move immediately. Others are paralyzed by fear. The Gestapo is getting closer. Several members have been questioned, released, watched. On July 18th, the group makes a final decision. July 20th, Wolf's Lair. No more delays. No more conditions. Stauffenberg will kill Hitler, and Germany will be free. July 20th, 1944, 6 a.m. Stauffenberg departs Berlin with his aide, Lieutenant Werner von Haften. They board a Heinkel He 111 at Rangsdorf Airfield. The flight to Rostenburg in East Prussia takes just over 2 hours. The briefcase is in the cargo hold, its contents carefully packed. Stauffenberg is calm, controlled, dressed in his uniform with the Knight's Cross visible on his chest. He's been to Wolf's Lair many times. The guards know him. Meanwhile, in Bavaria, Adolf Hitler wakes at Berghof and changes his schedule. He'll be at Wolf's Lair by midday for a conference on the Eastern Front. The timing is tight but workable. Stauffenberg's plane lands at 10:15 a.m. He and Haften are met by a staff car and driven through the compound's outer checkpoints. Security is routine. Briefcases are glanced at but not searched. Officers of Stauffenberg's rank are trusted. The compound itself is a small city. Bunkers, barracks, conference rooms, all hidden in dense forest. Oh, it's hot, oppressively so, and the conference room's windows are open to let in air. That detail, those open windows, will matter later. Stauffenberg checks in with Field Marshal Wilhelm Keitel's aide and confirms the briefing time. 12:30 p.m. He has 2 hours. He and Haften walk to a nearby building, ostensibly to review documents. In reality, they're preparing. Stauffenberg's heartbeat is steady. He's practiced this 47 times. The briefcase sits beside him, ordinary brown leather with a brass clasp. Inside, 2 packages of plastic explosive weight. In 2 hours, one of them will be armed. 12:20 p.m. Stauffenberg asks for a moment to freshen up before the briefing. He and Haften step into a small anteroom. Haften opens the briefcase. Inside are 2 packages of explosive, each wrapped carefully, each with its own detonator. The plan is to use both, double the blast radius, guarantee the kill. Stauffenberg uses pliers to crimp the pencil detonator on the first package. It's delicate work, made harder by having only 1 hand and 3 fingers. Haften steadies the package. The fuse is inserted. The timer starts. 10 minutes. Stauffenberg moves to arm the second package. There's a knock at the door. Keitel's aide. "Colonel, they're waiting for you." The voice is impatient. Stauffenberg freezes. He looks at Haften. There's no time to finish. The first bomb is armed and ticking. The second remains inert. He makes a decision. 1 bomb will have to be enough. He closes the briefcase, the brass clasp clicking shut. 8 minutes remain. Haften shoves the second unarmed package into his own bag. They'll dispose of it later. Stauffenberg exits the room, briefcase in hand, and follows the aide toward the conference building. His heartbeat is still steady. He's committed now. The fuse is burning. In 8 minutes, the briefcase will explode. The only question is whether he'll be far enough away when it does. He enters the conference room at 12:37 p.m. 24 officers are gathered around a massive oak table, studying maps of the Eastern Front. Adolf Hitler is bent over the center of the table, his back to the door. Stauffenberg walks forward, briefcase in hand. 5 minutes left. The conference room is stifling. Hitler is focused on a map showing Soviet troop movements near the Vistula River. General Adolf Hitler is presenting, his voice clipped and precise. Stauffenberg moves to Hitler's right, close to the table. He sets the briefcase down carefully, directly under the table, inches from Hitler's legs. It's the perfect position. If the bomb detonates here, there's no way Hitler survives. Stauffenberg straightens, clears his throat. Excuse me, Führer. I have an urgent phone call from Berlin, Army High Command. Hitler waves him off without looking up. Stauffenberg exits the room. His pace is measured, not rushed. He walks across the compound toward the staff car where Hefton is waiting. The distance is roughly 200 yards. Behind him, inside the conference room, the briefcase sits under the table, ticking. 4 minutes remain. Stauffenberg reaches the car. Hefton has the engine running. "It's done?" Hefton asks. Stauffenberg nods. They don't leave yet, too suspicious. Stauffenberg lights a cigarette, leans against the car, watches the building. 3 minutes. Inside the room, General Hitler continues his briefing. Hitler leans further over the map, his chest nearly touching the table's surface. The officers around him shuffle papers, adjust positions. Colonel Heinz Brandt, standing to Hitler's left, shifts his weight. His foot catches on something under the table. He glances down. The briefcase. It's in his way, awkward, blocking his stance. Annoyed, Brandt bends down and moves it. Just a few feet. To the far side of the table's thick oak support leg. He doesn't think about it. It's just a briefcase. 2 minutes remain. 12:42 p.m. The explosion is massive. The briefcase detonates with a blast that rips through the conference room, shredding wood, glass, and flesh. The oak table splinters. Bodies are thrown against walls. The windows, open because of the heat, channel the blast outward, dissipating some of the force. 4 men die instantly. General Günther Korten, General Rudolf Schmundt, Colonel Brandt, and stenographer Heinrich Berger. Others are wounded, bleeding, deaf from the concussion. Adolf Hitler is hurled against the wall. His hair is singed. His right arm is temporarily paralyzed. His eardrums are ruptured. His trousers are shredded, his legs embedded with splinters. But he's alive. The oak table absorbed the blast. The briefcase, moved 6 feet to the far side of the support leg, directed the explosion away from Hitler's body. Outside, Stauffenberg sees the smoke, hears the blast, sees debris flying from the shattered windows. He turns to Hefton. He's dead. Go. They speed toward the airfield, passing through checkpoints in the chaos. Guards wave them through. Nobody's coordinating yet. Nobody knows what happened. Stauffenberg's plane takes off at 1 p.m. He's airborne, flying back to Berlin, certain he's just killed Adolf Hitler. In the wreckage of the conference room, medics are pulling bodies from the rubble. Hitler is helped to his feet. He's shaking, furious, but conscious. His aides stare in shock. "Oh, I'm alive," Hitler says, his voice hoarse. "Providence has saved me." Within 30 minutes, the compound is locked down. Within an hour, Hitler is on the phone with Berlin, his voice unmistakable. The conspiracy is about to unravel in real time. 1:15 p.m. Stauffenberg lands in Berlin. He contacts the conspirators immediately. Hitler is dead. Activate Valkyrie. The plan goes into motion. Reserve army units are mobilized. Government buildings in Berlin are seized. Conspirators begin issuing orders, preparing to arrest SS leadership to take control of communications. For a brief moment, it's working. But in East Prussia, Adolf Hitler is very much alive. At 2:15 p.m., he places a phone call to Berlin. His voice is weak but recognizable, unmistakable. He will address the nation by radio. The conspiracy begins to crack. Officers who received Valkyrie orders now hesitate. Is Hitler dead or not? Conflicting reports flood the command network. Some units refuse to move. Others arrest the conspirators issuing the orders. In the War Ministry, Stauffenberg and his fellow plotters realize what's happening. The coup is collapsing. There's no dead Führer, no legitimacy, no authority. Loyalist officers storm the building. By 6 p.m., the War Ministry is surrounded. General Friedrich Fromm, who'd been detained by the conspirators, is released by Loyalist troops. He immediately orders the arrest of Stauffenberg, General Beck, General Friedrich Olbricht, and Haften. There's no trial, no delay. Fromm wants them dead before the Gestapo can interrogate them and potentially implicate him. Beck is allowed to shoot himself. He survives the first shot and has to be finished by a sergeant. The others are marched to the courtyard. It's just after midnight now, July 21st. Stauffenberg stands against a wall, his uniform torn, blood on his shoulder from a brief exchange of gunfire. He refuses a blindfold. The searchlights are harsh. He shouts once, "Long live sacred Germany!" The rifles fire. July 20th, 3 p.m. Back at Wolf's Lair, the Gestapo is already working. The conference room is a crime scene. Investigators sift through debris, collecting fragments, wood, metal, leather. They find pieces of the briefcase, the brass clasp twisted but intact. The explosive is identified. British plastic, pencil detonator, 10-minute fuse. Fingerprints are lifted from a leather fragment. 1 hand, 3 fingers. Claus von Stauffenberg. Interrogations begin immediately. Officers who were in the room are questioned. Guards are questioned. Everyone who saw Stauffenberg that morning is brought in. Colonel Heinz Brandt, severely wounded and dying, is able to give testimony. He remembers moving the briefcase. "It was in my way," he says, his voice faint. "I pushed it aside, just a few feet." That detail, 6 feet, a thoughtless motion, becomes central to the narrative Hitler will build. By evening, the Gestapo has identified the conspiracy's core members. Over 200 names. The network is vast, deeper than anyone anticipated. Hitler is obsessed with the briefcase. He orders the fragments preserved. 6 feet, he repeats to aides. Providence moved that case 6 feet and saved my life. 5 seconds. I am destined to complete my mission. The myth begins immediately. 10 p.m., July 20th. The War Ministry in Berlin is surrounded. Lights are cut. Loudspeakers demand surrender. Inside, Stauffenberg, Beck, Olbricht, and Haften know there's no escape. A brief firefight breaks out. Stauffenberg is shot in the shoulder but remains conscious. Beck, elderly and shaken, attempts suicide with a pistol. The shot grazes his skull. He's forced to try again. This time a sergeant finishes him. The others are disarmed and marched outside. General Fromm, desperate to prove his loyalty and cover his own involvement, convenes an impromptu court-martial. There's no defense, no testimony. The sentence is immediate. Death by firing squad. It's nearly midnight. The courtyard is lit by a single torch. Stauffenberg is propped against the cobblestone wall. His face is calm. Blood soaks through his uniform, but he stands upright. Witnesses later report he showed no fear. Haften tries to shield him at the last second and is shot first. Then Stauffenberg. Then Olbricht and another conspirator, Albrecht Merz von Quernheim. 4 men, 15 minutes. The bodies are buried in their uniforms in a nearby cemetery. The next day, Hitler orders them exhumed, burned, and their ashes scattered. No graves, no memory. Erase them completely. The executions don't stop. Over the following weeks, the Gestapo arrests more than 5,000 people connected to the conspiracy. Show trials are held in the People's Court, presided over by the fanatical judge Roland Freisler. The accused are humiliated, stripped of uniforms, dressed in ill-fitting civilian clothes, denied lawyers. Freisler screams at them, mocks them, ensures the proceedings are filmed. Hitler watches the footage personally. He orders the executions to be carried out by slow hanging, piano wire suspended from meat hooks. The condemned are hanged slowly, their deaths prolonged, filmed for Hitler's viewing. By August 1944, over 200 people directly connected to the plot are dead. Stauffenberg's family is arrested. His wife, Nina, is imprisoned. Their children are taken, renamed, and sent to orphanages under false identities. The Stauffenberg name is to be erased from history. His brother Berthold, also involved in the conspiracy, is executed. For Hitler, the failed assassination becomes propaganda. He displays his torn uniform in public, the singed fabric proof of his divine protection. He gives speeches about destiny, about Providence guiding Germany to final victory. The briefcase fragments are kept as a trophy. He shows them to visitors, recounting the story of the 6 feet that saved his life. The war continues for 9 more months. Hitler, convinced of his destiny, refuses to consider surrender even as the Reich collapses. Millions more die in the final push. Soldiers, civilians, concentration camp prisoners murdered in the last days. The resistance that might have shortened the war is gone, purged, broken. In the spring of 1945, as Soviet forces close in on Berlin, Hitler kills himself in his bunker. The briefcase fragments survive. After the war, they're recovered by Allied forces and eventually placed in German museums. Historians spend decades analyzing the plot, the decisions, the 6 feet. Stauffenberg's name, erased in 1944, is restored. Schools are named after him. Memorials are built. He becomes a symbol, not of success, but of moral courage in the face of absolute evil. The briefcase, once an instrument of assassination, becomes a relic of resistance. Today you can see the fragments in a museum in Berlin. The leather is charred, cracked. The brass clasp is bent but still recognizable. Next to it, a placard explains the history. The conspiracy, the bombing, the aftermath. Tourists stand in front of the display, taking photos, reading about the 6 feet that changed history. Because that's what it came down to. 6 feet. One annoyed officer moving a briefcase out of his way. 10 minutes between arming and detonation. 1 bomb instead of 2. Hitler called it Providence. History calls it chance. Stauffenberg called it sacred duty. The truth is simpler and stranger. The distance between assassination and survival, between ending the war in 1944 and letting it burn for 9 more months, was the length of a conference table. 6 feet, 10 minutes, 1 briefcase. And history turned on chance Hitler called destiny.